All right, so another tech demo session. We've got Donald McCormick from Squirrel 365. Welcome, Donald. Thank you so much for taking the time out to come and speak to us.
No problem.
Really, really appreciated. So many of us became aware of Squirrel 365 during and before and after the summit, and Squirrel 365 won the Innovation of the Year. And I think we were even on the kind of short live ceremony, a few of us were kind of blown away by what we saw just in 5 minutes. So looked really impressive, and we were, we had it on our hit list straight away to try and get you guys in to learn a bit more about the products.
What we do is we import spreadsheets, create remarkable content on them, and then publish that out, usually to the cloud. It doesn't have to be to the cloud, but I'll explain that a bit later. So what does that mean? Let me show you this spreadsheet that we're going to be looking at just to start with, mainly because I know it well, and so therefore the demo goes more smoothly. I'll show you one that you guys might recognize a little later. And so this is what we call our SaaS revenue model. It is trivial by comparison to other spreadsheet models that you guys might be involved with, but it'll make the point. What I basically have is a 2-year projection being added up into an annual summary, another sort of key numbers pulled out of there, a couple of key performance indicators there. All that's happening here is just ordinary sort of Excel formulas. We get to sort of some functions, but nothing too fancy here. And on here, I've got my factor sheet, which is just the set of inputs which drive this, what my budget is, what my churn is, and all that stuff. So obviously, I come in here and I look at sort of customers lost, and in the second year, that refers back to factors B8, which is going to be the monthly churn. So it's a very, very standard sort of stuff here, and we'll look at how much of Excel we support, and because that question will inevitably come up as we go on. So I take this spreadsheet, this SaaS revenue model.xlsx, and I'm just now going to import it into Squirrel. And so that's the wrong full stack one here, SaaS revenue model. So that pulls it into Squirrel, and what we have down here is our representation of that. Now, it would be nice if this were actually Excel, but it turns out that's not technically possible within the web technology we're using. So we had to write. What we tried to is, first of all, we tried to embed a third-party spreadsheet. There are many of them, but none of them were up to the job. So this is our own spreadsheet, and we try very hard to keep it, the essentials of it, as close to Excel, and to a certain extent Google Sheets, but Excel's the main market here. And we support probably, I just saw, in fact, I think it was from your newsletter that Excel have gone past their 500th function with their increasingly sort of mind-bending Lambda functions. So they have about 500. I think we support about 350 of those. And the ones we don't support, we're adding all the time, and the ones we don't typically are really quite edge case engineering functions and things like that. So we probably support 95 to 99% of things that people ordinarily use, particularly in financial modeling. And so I've got this in here, and it works. It's not just showing me the data. If I come in here, I can type in, I could put 0.11 in there, and that'll change to 11, and that'll ripple through all of this. So this is a calculation engine as a spreadsheet sitting inside here, and that's really important because the spreadsheet underpins everything we do in Squirrel. And so when we export it as web content, that spreadsheet engine has to be there. So we didn't just write the front end of this; we've written an engine which does the recalculation of the spreadsheet as well, and that will become painfully obvious why that's required as we go through. So really, what Squirrel is about is building user interfaces of very different sorts on top of a spreadsheet like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a chart. So if I add a column chart here, and obviously I'm going to bind this into the data in the spreadsheet. So I go into my data tab here. Now this is, to a certain extent, this is all you can do with Squirrel, is you can take components and you can bind their properties to the spreadsheet. But that belies an enormous array of capability. So what I'm going to do is say I'm going to take my values, and I'm just going to take this revenue line here, so my recurring revenue, and so I immediately do that. I'll auto size the bars, it makes them look a little nicer. I've got no category labels there. So I'll take those from, I'll scroll up here and take those from my headings. So I've got them there. They overlap a bit. So I go down to my x-axis. And I've just got all the not all, because they're all things that I think, well, I wish we did this, but most of the things you would want to do with these. And I turn off the title on the x-axis and on the y-axis, because we don't really need those. Turn off that title. There we go. And then I'm going to put a title on here. Now I could come back to the top here and say I'm going to just type in my title and say it's going to be recurring revenue, but that as well. So pretty much every property you can say, well, I'm going to bind it to something in the spreadsheet, and so it goes there. I don't want the subtitle there. But you see now, if I change this to recurring revenue, then it updates there. So there's a dynamic connection between the spreadsheet, what I've got in my spreadsheet, and what I've got in my components. But that's not that interesting, because charts on Excel on spreadsheets are things that have been done since the year dot. So what I'm going to now do is I'm going to add in a slider, and this slider is going to start to take control, and I'm going to say it's going to be a percentage slider, and I only want it to be steps of 1%, and then I'm going to bind it, and it's this binding, which is, so the binding to the chart was all just taking stuff in the spreadsheet and putting it into the chart, so it's output binding. This actually is two-way binding. So I click on here and I say I'm going to my factors, and that's going to be my monthly churn. So I'm now binding that in there. So if I now preview this as an end user would see, even at this stage, then what I have is I have something that I can move around, and it's sort of recalculating the model, and I'm now seeing my chart dance around based on that. So as I say, this is the spreadsheet's there hidden in the background. The end user never sees it, and that's one of the things that people like about this, is it takes either complex modeling, complex models that would scare end users or scare users, or IP that you don't really want people to see, and it packages it. They can't see the underlying model here. They can only see the inputs you want to show them and the outputs that you want them to see. For me as a developer of one of these, I might want to come in and say, well, actually, I wonder, it's useful to be able to see it running as the interface runs. So you'll notice this here. If I run it in what we call debug mode, then I can move this, and actually I'll scroll up to these. So if you watch these numbers in the second half, because churn affects the second year numbers, you can see that all those numbers are changing in there. So the spreadsheet is being recalculated in real time as I slide this. Might want to add another one. I'll just in there. Take a second slider, and this one is going to be, I'll do it into the referral conversion rate there, because that allows me to, it really just allows me to play nice patterns with the so that's drop off with churn, but this is growth, and obviously eventually exponential growth with greater conversions, and you can get it to sort of do all sorts of nice things. So it's very visual, very interactive. People love that sort of, oh, I do this and what happens sort of thing. Now, obviously, I don't know what those are, so I'm going to just put a little bit of text on there. And again, you often have the text for the labels. I don't have to type it in, so I'm going to take it from customer churn there and make that go out there. And maybe I'll copy that, put this down here, and bind the second one to the where is it, referral conversion rate. So now I've got, make it a bit wider, and now probably wants to just line those up and space them out. So I've got some, there it is. So I've got a nice little set of things that I can control that there. So that at the heart is what Squirrel is about. It's about putting components on binding to the spreadsheet, using the logic of the underlying spreadsheet to drive the inputs to the outputs. And there are just many components you can use to build these up, whether it's text labels or different charts or data visualizations, and controls. And we'll see more of this as we go through. Buttons, drop downs, list boxes. You can control. You can build a real. And this is why we talk about it not just as being a sort of a interactive front end for spreadsheet models, but also as a no-code app building capability, because you can use all of these components with buttons and menus and things like that, all controlled by logic in the spreadsheet. So it's not, there's literally, you can't write a line of code in Squirrel even if you wanted to. It all has to be done through spreadsheet logic. So we see a lot of people taking existing spreadsheet skills and applying them in a very different way to a very different outcome. But it's something that sort of certainly we see a number of our customers doing things which other people in the organization go, "Why? How did you do that? And where did you get the development resource for that?" And sort of it can be a very productive way of creating these sort of mini apps, as it were. But then to give you a flavor of that, and the more that you can do, as I said, almost every property of every component is bindable and therefore can be controlled by the spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do is say I want a KPI here, and the KPI, and again, the beauty of having, sorry, I should have said earlier, once I've updated this spreadsheet, I can export it back out to Excel, so that the spreadsheet itself can be my reference document in Excel. I don't bring it in and then make changes and it's locked, so I can keep them in sync. But the great thing about being able to manipulate it inside Squirrel is I'm thinking as I go. So I'm going to create some app content here. So I create another sheet. I'm going to rename it as app. And then I'm going to create typing in there, a KPI, make that bold there. And the text for the KPI is going to be a conglomeration of something else I've got here. It's going to be equal to, if we go to the top here where I have my KPI sections, year-on-year revenue growth, and a space, and that there. Now you'll see I'm just using, I mean, it is the functions are all identical to Excel. We haven't sort of changed or made anything different. So for example, obviously I want this as a percentage, so I would do exactly what I would do in Excel, which is say text, and then format that with a 0.0% formatter, and there, that's much better. So now what I can do is I can bind this text label into this new formula I've just added, and I'm going to obviously make it a bit more like a KPI. So I'll make it 25 big. I'll make the text color white and the background black just to make it stand out. You start to see we're doing things like that, and immediately, because it's all plugged into the model, if I come and do this, then you'll see that that number changes, and so my KPI changes as I go. Now, it's not so therefore I've got titles and text, and that all updates, so I can have dynamic things going on there. But then also, for example, maybe I want to say I've got I want to color code this, so green, yellow, and red. And if it's over 1.5 in terms of growth, 150%, it's green, then yellow, then red. So I'm going to have a color here again, which is going to be, and I never know whether to put the U in or not, because is this a mainly British audience or mainly American audience? So sorry, I'm distracting myself.
Total mixture.
Yes, well, quite. So we're actually quite confused. I was going to not say this, but we're quite confused at Squirrel. We have our standards are, if it's in the product, it's American, but if it's in communication, it's in British. But that gets confusing. So is documentation part of the product or part of communication? So we can't make up our minds. Anyway, so what I'm going to say, again, another formula here. I'm going to say if this here is greater than this threshold, then it's going to be that. Otherwise, if it's this here is greater than this threshold, then it's going to be yellow. Otherwise, it's going to be red. And I've got two ifs, so I close two brackets. And of course, it always does that, as all things do. So why is this? There, yes, I haven't typed the if in the front there. So there we go. So it's currently between these two, so it's yellow. And then what I do is I can take this text color and bind it into here. So now I've got a dynamic color in here. And so as you would expect, when I come here and I sort of say, I want to do this, if I go down, if I go too far down, I've messed that up.
That's the curse.
That should be
curse of doing
exactly
function in a live.
Well, there is that. There we go. So it's growing. There it goes, but it goes bad. It goes green at the end. Yes. So now we've got something that will reflect that. So I can go down to yellow to green depending on this. And obviously I go up here, it grows more and it goes green. These are a bit. I'm going to. You can't really change them. So I'll change the colors there so they're more visible on the black background. There we go. The salmon and the light green. So So that gives you a flavor of just some of the dynamic things you can do. But it's not, it's pretty, as I say, it's pretty much everything. So what I might say is, I might say for this factor here, the factor of monthly churn, I might want to say if that is greater than 0.5, then red, otherwise gray, like that. And then say this slider itself, I'm going to say that it's styling, so the track color is going to be that there, and also there's two sections. The selected color and the track color are two different things. So I'll bind them both there. So now what we're doing is you can sort of alert the user as I come up here. I go over 50%, and suddenly the track goes gray. It might be more obvious if I do the handle as well. Just bear with me, and I'll do that. Handle fill color. So I'll bind that into there too. And so obviously that maybe you want to alert the user something strange is going on, but then then the only other thing, well, actually two other things you need to know. One other thing you need to know is that not only can you change the colors and all these properties, but also I can turn things on and off. And this is where we get into being able to build really quite sophisticated things in here. So if I take an icon here and search our icons for warning, and so I'm going to put an alert triangle, and I'm going to make that, I'll just make that, no, I don't want to bind it. I just want to make it a color. I'll make it yellow. And I'll make the stroke a bit bigger. So I've got this here, but obviously I only want that to appear when this is in a critical area. So I've got this, every component is a thing called dynamic visibility. And so I say, when this value here, which is the thing I just created for that, if this is, I only want it to appear when it's gone red. Now that could be equals 1 or 10 or whatever. It's just, it happens that that's those two, that cell equals that value. So now what I do, I come in and do it, and so if everything's fine until I come up here, and then all of a sudden, hey presto, it appears. If I go back down, it disappears. So I have this enormous control over what the user is seeing, and it's, yeah, there's just a remarkable set of capability there. That really shouldn't have happened. So we'll ignore that, which is good because I just finished that part of the demo, and I was going to say, and now I'll load one that I did earlier. So it was not too big a problem that happened. So no, I don't want to load that. It's throw away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open one that sort of embodies all that you've seen, just nicely packaged. So when you give it to someone with an eye for some sort of design, this is the sort of thing that you can do. So it's exactly the same idea. Here's a slider. It's the same. It's actually exactly the same spreadsheet, just tidied up. The UI tidied up a bit. So we've got something that looks nice here. The next step is we want to publish it. And so the way that we do that is we go into preview to preview the model, all works here, and then we say publish, and we publish it. Well, actually, there are two things we can do. We can publish it to the Squirrel cloud, and I'll major on that, but we can also publish to local. And what that'll do is, and it's our higher end product that allows you to do that, but you can then, it'll say, where do you want to put it on your local drive? So you get a set of files, which is this web application that you can then put on your website or embed in, or keep inside your firewall if you don't want to use our cloud. So you can either publish to the cloud, which is really simple, as we'll see, or you can take the output. It's just a folder of files that you can then use like any other web content and put on your website. And we'll see some examples of people having done that a bit later on. So I publish this out, and I just give it a name, full stack SaaS. And then I say, I've got all sorts of options here, but I won't bother with that. I'll publish it up. So that's now compiling that into its standalone form, generating that project, and then pushing it up to the Squirrel cloud. And then it throws me into my project manager, where you'll see all the things that I have already published. So this is all the ones that I've got. And we'll look at many of these as we go into the examples. So then what I can do is I can say, I'm going to move that to live. I can preview it in the browser, which is a one shot, or I can, because the product is licensed by live projects. You know, as many private projects as you want, and you can view them yourself. But if you want to share with other people, you have to move that to live. And then when it comes back, we can share it. Now, the easiest, there are three ways we can share it. The first one that we'll look at most is in the web. So if I copy this link, actually the easiest way is not to copy the link, but just to say go open in browser, and that'll open this up. And this didn't exist as web content 2 minutes ago, but now it's there. Sort of, we've got all the things that you could do before, and it's all sitting there in the cloud. So that link is obviously, this is an unguessable ID, but it's publicly available. So it's sort of quote unquote secured by being unguessable, but anyone with the current sharing model is anyone with the link can see it. Actually, if I just go back here, I can show you that if you want more than that, if we go to the publish dialog again, I can add a password to a particular project. So that would have to be typed in to get to it. So you can secure it. We're currently working on the ability to have accounts on the system and log in and only these people can see it and all that sort of stuff. But today it's either password protected or on an obfuscated link. So I come back here, I go back to where I was in my project manager. So yeah, that link you can just share away and anyone can see it. And in fact, if I was to do that here, put that in the chat. I'll do that again, share, grab that web link, put it in here. Then if any of you click on that, you'll see that one can interact with that model. As I say, it wasn't available on the web sort of 5 minutes ago until I published it. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is, well, another way to do it is to come and get the embed code. So even if you want to embed it in your website, you don't have to store it behind your firewall. You can actually just take this iframe and it'll embed nicely on any sort of website really. And we've got special code there that helps in things like Medium and Wix and those other things that make it really easy. You just type the link in and off you go. And I'll show you some live examples of customers who are doing that and how integrated it is in the demos. But then the thing that we do, which is unusual, I don't think anyone else, and I'm pretty sure nobody else does this, is we also allow you to embed these in PowerPoint. So if I take this, copy that there, then if I come back to my PowerPoint presentation and bring on this here, what I can do is I can come in here, create a new slide. Actually, I don't want to do that because I don't want a blank one. I'll create a new slide under here. And then what I can do is I can say, I'll get rid of that content. I can say I want to insert, where I can ever find it, my add-ins. Now there's a Squirrel add-in in the Microsoft Store. It's free to download. You just have to go and get it. And then I can paste that link in here that I got out of, make sure I haven't pasted it too many times there. And so now I've got this live and interactive inside PowerPoint. So I make this so that I don't get the gray bits. So here, and as I say, it's live, so I can do all the things I can do with that here, but not only here, but also if I come and go, there it is there. I can do it when I'm live, so I can do it as part of a live presentation. And you're very lucky to be able to see this today, because this morning this wasn't working, and it wasn't our fault. It was Microsoft. For some reason, sliders had stopped working for us, and it turns out it was a Microsoft bug which they fixed in the update that I applied today. So yes, I was very relieved at that. But yeah, you can do all of that. So the next phase we're going to go through is we're going to go to what are we going to go through? I'm going to go through many. Oh, not many. I don't want to bore you, but probably 5 or 6 different examples of output, because they are so different and do so many different things, just to sort of help expand your understanding of truly what is possible here. But before we do that, what I want to do quickly is, I said I would give you one earlier. I told you I'd give you something that was, so maybe somehow I'm madly cheating in this spreadsheet, and somehow it's more difficult than it looks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take. So I've been talking to Ian at OneBox, and he sent me one of his sample outputs, which was a modeling exercise from the Institute of Modeling or whatever it is. And this is the output, pretty much untouched output, and I'll show you where I have touched it. Untouched output from OneBox, which is A, it's a non-trivial model, and B, it's nothing that I've created, so I can't really be cheating. And so what I did, if I come in here and open, I did a little work on that and created a Squirrel model of it. And I only did 2 things here, and it was all about getting the data ready for display. So when it opens, I'll show you what that is. there we go. So what I did is, where is it? One of them was an income statement. Yes. So I wanted the output to look like this, and the numbers in the income statement were sort of spread around in different places. So I literally just took these into a table, which is just equals here, equals there. So that is literally just taking numbers from over there. And I did the same for the inputs. See, I think it's in this one here. So I've got these inputs, but I wanted to combine them together. So I just put them in this table. That's all I did to that spreadsheet. And so now what I have is, and you'll notice from I don't know how many of you are familiar with the way that OneBox works, but if you type a different number in there, it picks a different scenario. So I use that in my Squirrel model. So if I come in here and preview this, then what you see is that there's that output. And and the table of assumptions, if I click on this, again, I said hiding and showing things, I can click on the here and see my assumptions, which is just that base case table that you saw in there. I can do the same sort of thing here. So this is doing exactly the same thing as I was doing with my model, but it's on a OneBox model. Inputs, outputs, and sort of so yeah. So there's nothing up my sleeve. This is a perfectly ordinary sort of Excel model as generated by OneBox. So that's possible.
And I'm thinking more for the recording, Donald. You mean OpenBox, don't you?
I absolutely mean OpenBox. Yes.
Yeah,
was I saying OneBox?
You're saying OneBox. I'm just thinking people are going to watch it back, so I thought I'd jump in.
Yeah.
And just
That's
sure
you're absolutely right. It's OpenBox, not one. I don't know what OneBox is. Probably a very good product, but I've never seen it. That's how you create these things. That's sort of some of the behavior. The only other thing which I haven't introduced, I won't go in because you get more value out of seeing some of the examples. We also have the ability to connect to external data, databases. We support a really nice online database called Ninox. Google Sheet, you can read data from Google Sheets and Excel. You can read and write to Ninox. We've got a preview of reading and writing to Smartsheet. And I mentioned that, and again, it's exactly the same. I can say, I want to read this data into this range in the spreadsheet, or I want to take this range in the spreadsheet and write it back to the database. It's exactly the same sort of thing as you've seen before by binding things together. And the only reason I mention it is some of the demos that you're about to see actually have some of that sort of capability in them. And so just so you know where that's coming from and how that's done. So what I'm going to do is come in here. So that was the one we just that I just put in the chat. So just some of these I'll go through very quickly because they're pretty obvious. So this is just a little demo that I created about a year ago after I just joined Squirrel. Just as an example, people were saying, can you do tabbed interfaces? And again, that's just switching things on and off using the spreadsheet. Again, some drop downs where I can change things like that. It's just packaged up into a nice interface. This is the only one I'll show you because it does dashboards fantastically, but I don't want to major them because that's not really where we're trying to focus. But classic sort of dashboard. Well, it's a bit more. It's interesting because you've got the spreadsheet here. You can add in sort of what if calculations very easily. But classic spreadsheet, I can sort of change the data in here. I think this is being loaded dynamically from a database. So I can go monthly and quarterly. And this is definitely being loaded dynamically from a database comments. So I can add comments and say, so I can say full stack modeler comment and then write that back, and that has been written back to the database and has become a new comment. And so the next time someone comes in, they'll see those comments. So you can build that sort of stuff in as well. There was one that's not here. Why is it not here? I might have to go back and reload it if it's not, because there was another one that I had. So another example of writing back to a database. This is it here. So this is exactly what you've seen already, which is the SaaS revenue thing, but it's slightly different. In fact, I've got this little button down here which allows me to load scenarios. So I can say I want to see my flat scenario. You can see it changing behind, and that is loading data from a little a database. In fact, it's loading from this database here. Let me just quickly show you that. This is a Ninox database, if I can find it. Yes, it's in demo and SaaS scenarios. So that's these things here. And what you'll see is if I come in here and say, as a full stack modeler, actually, no, what I'll do is I'll do something more interesting with the numbers. So I've got that, and maybe pull this one down here. So, and yeah, so it's just a different shape. So I can come in here, full stack modeler, and save that away. So that's now become something I can go and look at and change between. But also, as we come back to the dash, we see the full stack saved it back to the database. So that's actually dynamically writing back that scenario to the database. Today, if you want to do those scenarios, you have to have an independent place to store them, like Ninox or something like that. But one of the things we're going to do in one of the next couple of releases is add that native scenario capability. So you say, I want a scenario, save it to our cloud, so you don't have to mess around with them with other databases. Then other examples, something that a lot of our customers do. Well, I would say the biggest minority of our customers use this for what we call value calculators. These are marketing things to explain the value of a product. So this is one we said, well, imagine you provide backup solutions, and how much data do you have? Well, I've got 340 megabytes or maybe 470 megabytes. I'm on your standard plan. Oh, that's going to take 6 minutes to transfer. Oh, I meant gigabytes. Oh, that's going to take 4 days to transfer. Maybe I should go on to the lightning plan. Oh, that's only going to take 1 hour. And what people do is use these in order to engage people and they can be as simple as this. Another one I did that reproduces the one of the Amazon Web Services capabilities, their pricing in here. One of the nice things you can do is this layering over, saying a little help to tell people what they should be implementing. But people use these to engage with their customers and sort of their prospects. And someone who's used it really nicely are a customer of ours called Future Metrics. Bill at Future Metrics is a long history in sort of environmental sources of energy, and he's pioneering the wood chip industry he actually thinks that using wood chips for sustainable forests, we can make things carbon negative. I'm not qualified to comment on that, but he's very animated about it. But what he's done is he has created a number of, you'll see all these dashboards down here. He calls them dashboards. I would call them sort of value calculators. And you click on them and you get to it here. It's a bit bigger than my screen, so let me just make it up here. So this is created by Bill, who's a spreadsheet guy. He's got not a development bone in his body, and he wouldn't mind me saying that. But he's created this, which is all about how close the wood chips are when you start, and what you can do, and how negative you can get. It's got nice little bits which shows you sort of context. It can sort of give you some different sort of advice and guidance, and it takes it through sort of a path. And when it's remarkable to hear Bill talk about it. And if you're interested in this, we did a webinar. It's recorded on our website with Bill about exactly what all this means and how he uses it. And he likes it. The reason he shows this one off, I think it's because it's about going carbon negative, but also these images. I think he likes the fact that he managed to make these images sort of get smaller and disappear as he gets. And this is how many homes worth of power and how many cars you're removing from the CO2 emissions if you do what you're doing with his with his help on you're using wood chips in your previously coal-fired power stations. Then another example, I mean that's just a link out to this to this on a separate page. But Prospero, who are an e-commerce consultancy, they have got one. This is a Squirrel model, which is sort of advertising what they do, but it's baked into their website. They kindly allowed the Power by Squirrel to stay on there. But again, it's the same sort of thing. You can sort of move these around, see what's going on, reset them back to the beginning, look at a benchmark sort of things. And again, they use this to sell their business. Going back to some of the others in PowerPoint. What is viewing tables or charts? Again, this is very similar to the others where you can sort of change all these underlying things just to model them. This is an interesting one where I've actually got, this is a Squirrel model, but you can embed other web pages, and this is taking pages from Wikipedia and displaying them inside Squirrel. And the interesting, again, as you might expect, when I click on Moon, this control here is inserting Moon into the spreadsheet. There's a formula which calculates the link that I need, basically taking the stem for Wikipedia and adding on the query string Moon, and then that appears in there. So again, all that's done using spreadsheet logic. This is one that an ex-colleague of mine at SAP, Timo Elliott, used to use for, maybe still does use for, he start off and he presents a lot of conferences, multi-day conferences, and he'll say, well, how many days are we here for, and sort of how many presentations and how many people, how many slides, and so just sort of to sort of break the ice with people and sort of in terms of, sort of how many slides people are going to see. Again, sort of the app style stuff, doing exactly the same way as you saw before, being able to do it with logic, change the images for a man rather than a woman, change the colors, and actually change the maximum number of slides someone can tolerate in a day before it goes red. So again, it's just a nice example of a calculator. And then we get onto the silly stuff. So this is a Squirrel model, and because everything's dynamic, I can have images of clocks and hands that, and again, this is all being driven by the time function in Excel, and calculating angles, all using Excel formulas to be able to do that. We can change the background to a different thing here, turn off the second hand. It even takes account, so if you're currently in California watching this, then it's only 1:45 and 1:45. Is that right? Oh, no, it's going forward. That's forward from here. So that's Singapore or something like that. It's 1:45 in the morning. And I create a little, at the start of the lockdown, I create a little timer here. So you can say, when does your meeting restart? Well, I want you back in 20 seconds, so that on the screen, people can see how much time they have left for their break, rather than depending on everyone remembering where it is that they were when they had to come back. And are there any others that I want to show you? Yes, there are a couple I can't resist. My R explainer. So I created this to explain to somebody why it was that the R factor with infection of COVID is so sensitive. It sort of goes around 1. It's all about exponential growth, obviously. So I did. Someone said, but I don't understand why it's going only to 0.9. Why does that matter? So I just created this little one here. As you can see, it's got an animation in it, but you can do it yourself and see what happens as you go down. You really obviously don't have to go very far down before it almost wipes itself out, or very far up before you get sort of a hideous sort of growth in there. So that was just quite a fun one. And then 2 more before I show you a quick video and stop. One is, this is also a Squirrel project. It's basically a fairly fully featured sort of front end to a CRM system. Again, this is running against a Ninox database. It's just got a few tables of leads and customers. But things I can do in here is look at which are my leads, which are my opportunities, which are my customers. I can go and say, well, that Electroworks, I click on them and say, well, I'm going to mark those as churned. So you see that the Electroworks are not in churned. Come back here, select them and mark them as churned. They disappear out of here and they appear in churned Electroworks. So that's all been written back to the database. I can search for things like my Tigris systems. If I don't want to mark something as a Smilewood is going to progress to an opportunity, I just click that and it moves it over to the opportunity. For everyone I click on, I can see what's the touch points. I can edit the details here. So if I say, well, that's actually 10,000 and not 8,000, then I can submit that back to the database. And also I can create new contacts here with a new lead form. And again, it feels like there should be sort of, you need to have web coding knowledge to do this. This is genuinely created with, I know because I built it, and it is nothing but Excel formulas and that capability to write to the Ninox database. And then my favorite one of all time, which is because it's totally sort of useless as a business tool, but is this one here. I don't know how many of you have seen this illusion. It is my all-time favorite optical illusion for various reasons. And the reason for it is that if you haven't seen it before, you won't believe it. And even if you have seen it before, you probably still won't believe it, because I don't believe it, and I've seen it 1,000 times before. These 2 squares are in fact the same color. There's no way you can see it like that. Your brain is getting in the way of you seeing it, but those are the same shade of gray on the computer screen. But because this is in a shadow, your brain's saying, no, I'm going to make that look less because I think it's in shadow. And so the way that I try to get across is say, okay, because you can, one of the, we didn't see this in the demo, but one of the properties you can bind to things is their position on the screen. So I said, well, I'm going to take that tile up here and I'm going to move it down there. Actually, it's supposed to be not curvy to start with, and goes down there. And even that, it just looks like you're cheating. You can change the color in Squirrel. You must be changing the color. It goes, I promise you, it's not. And then I thought, well, maybe if I make it go round here, so I sort of started to make it go curvy and sort of, or even if you make it a dot, will that make it? But the illusion is so intense that it just looks like I'm fudging the color as I go. So it didn't quite. It was a nice example of Squirrel, but I didn't quite get the effect I was looking for, which is to explain to people that this is happening. The only real way you can persuade yourself of this is to. Cause I once did a presentation at SAP, and this guy, Danny Davis, an old Excelsius guy, I said, look at this, and he had it on the screen. And so he said, I don't believe that. So I got out Paint, and I took the image, and I cut the square out, and I pulled it down. It was the same color. And he said, I don't believe it. You've written your own version of Paint, which looks like Paint. You're just trying to fool me. And I said, no, it's true. So what you have to do, you have to cut it out with a piece of paper, and then cut this square out and move it down, and you see, my God, they're the same. So anyway, so that's the least business oriented one ever, but it's my favorite one. So before I stop for questions, the last thing I'm going to do is just show you sort of almost the ultimate of what's possible here. And it's a 2-minute video from let me stop this, from a webinar that we did. If you want to see the details of this, again, it's on our website. Ziv Barsili is in Israel, works for Salesforce, and has created this remarkable calculator where the salespeople at Salesforce come in, and it's a value calculator. The value drivers, they type them in. There are all these menus. It's one of those things where you see the sort of things that he's doing, and it's every so often you see this in software. Many of you will see it as well. He has done things with the product. I saw this. I said, I don't believe this is Squirrel, because it's just not possible, but it is possible. He does it all. It all writes back to a database. It really is a remarkable piece of engineering, and shows you just how far. And this really brings into relief where the sort of why at the beginning I was talking about no code development, because you really can develop things. And after he created this, it took him 3 months to do it from scratch, just him. And he reckons that he could do a new one. He's churning them out now for different parts of the business as a one a month. He went to his IT guys and said, could you do one of these for me? And they estimated a team of 3 would take just over a year to do it. So he's creating a career at Salesforce based on this and in fact, he's supposed to sell his software. The sad thing is that, well, not sad thing, but the funny thing is that one customer said, I'm not sure we're going to buy your software, but could we have this? Because we like this as a way of articulating the value to the board. As if was very pleased to be able to say, no, if you're not buying our software, you can't have our value calculator. So, so really, yeah. So that's from the beginning. That's what I mean by extraordinary content. So you can share it with a link, embed it in PowerPoint. Actually, I didn't show you can embed it in things like Teams and stuff like that, or on a website, and all done with clicks, not code. There's a 30-day trial, or there's more examples at the showcase. Some of the PowerPoint examples are there you can use. You just download the PowerPoint slide and it'll all work without sort of even having Squirrel on your machine. And there's a 30-day trial, no credit card required, just download it and off you go. Take our examples or create stuff from scratch. So there's and with that I will draw breath and answer any or all questions that you guys have.
Guys, feel free to come off mute. I've got loads of questions, by the way, but I don't want to be selfish, so I want everyone else to ask.
It sounds like you might have to.
I reckon somebody's got a question. Fine, I'm going to take over the next 8 minutes. So that blows me away, Donald. And Miles and I were just messaging each other going, oh my God, there's so many things that we want to do. Like my first observation is we're doing a lot of work with Power BI, and it's always felt to me since we looked at Power BI that as financial modelers, we're kind of doing a sort of square peg and round holes thing with Power BI, where if you want to use it as a visualization tool, you've got to do all this stuff, the data, and get into potentially different, 3D modeling and relationships and all that. This feels like such a more natural financial modeler's visualization and more tool. I don't know what you would think about that comment, Miles, as well. Sorry, and you, Donald, but yeah.
But no.
Yeah, so exactly the same. Yeah, to get into Power BI, we've got to flip it from going horizontal into a vertical table and back up into Power BI, and then do measures and all sorts of complicated stuff. Whereas you just selected the cells and there they were, and then layer in scenarios on top of that really easily. That flexes the base model. Yeah, blew my mind, Donald. I got to be honest.
So you're absolutely right, and so as Power BI, you're absolutely right. As is Tableau, as is any of the other dashboarding tools, they go on a SQL-like relational table set of data, which is not the way that spreadsheets work. Yes, you can with things like Power Query and things like that get it into that shape, but it loses so much as you do. Yes, you can think of it as a sort of like an after the event reporting on it, but even that it fails, because what happens is you get it in there and you say, I've got these two tables and I just want this row underneath this row. How do I do that? Well, in the spreadsheet, you say, well, equals this, equals this, equals this, and 2 minutes later, you're done. In Power BI, you're going, oh, I need to use some really complicated query merging sort of stuff just to do that. And then if you say, as you say, Miles, if I say, now I just want to change this number in Power BI and see it reflected, no hope.
And another question I had was, so we know Excel is going online, things like that. Do you think Microsoft are a little bit nervous about people like you doing this? Because this feels like an obvious value-adding kind of step, for people to look beyond Excel and share and have dynamic capabilities.
One of the things that we are very clear about is we depend on Excel. We're a complement to Excel. We add value. We're not like the tactics of this world who openly say we can do it better than Excel. So it very much like Ian at OpenBox, who's sort of saying, Excel's the main currency. We read and write Excel spreadsheets because because people use Excel, and so we're very much a value add. I've seen no indication that they're heading in this direction. I mean, even at the moment, trying to embed an Excel you can go to an online spreadsheet in Excel, but embedding it in another website is nearly impossible in any meaningful way, let alone sort of cutting it down so it's usable. So,
and final question for me, pricing. What is it after the trial? What's the standard price?
There are the pricing, as I said earlier, is based on live projects. And so the numbers. So when I say presenter 3, I mean the capability to put it in PowerPoint with 3 live or shared projects. For presenter, actually, the number of projects doesn't matter that much, because typically it's a personal use, and you can turn them on and off. So it's like a concurrent model. It's not like you get to share 3 and then you have to stop. You can unshare them and share other ones. Their presenter 3 is $16 a month, and right up to so presenter is about you can only put it in a presentation. Creator gives you the share and embedding capability, and then builder gives you the database access and things like the more app sort of building stuff, and also if you want to connect to enterprise data sources. So.
Awesome. I'll stop asking questions. If anybody else has any closing thoughts, insights, questions, please jump in. But yeah, I absolutely love it, Donald. I think it's amazing.
Great. Well, I mean, if anyone has any questions occur, feel free. I'm Donald at squirrel365.io. Feel free to drop me. If you don't get that, Giles can put you in touch. Happy to answer questions. And I love feedback on the product. In fact, I'm sort of certainly prepared to trade trial extensions for feedback if people want to use it for non-production stuff, and just let us know what's right and what's wrong with it. That'd be great. We're very much in the stage of exploring. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and to be in your Tech Learn section ongoing.
Yeah, no worries. Gunjan, you've come off mute. Did you have something you wanted to share?
Just first of all, it's a very, very good product. Like I'm just blown over.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask about the support. Like, do we once we get like a creator plan, would there be support?
So yes, we there are 2 ways of support. You can there's our tutorial section. So there are a growing number of videos and online documentation and things like that for helping you do that. And there's also support. And so we have a support team who answer questions and help people with the product. There's as ever, there's a very blurred line between support and consultancy, but we try to help people get going as much as possible. And in fact, just whilst I'm here, I just want to show you something because I like it again, because it's really because I wrote it. I'm talking about embedding in websites, and I know we're over, so this will be the last thing I say. So we support a number of spreadsheet functions, so to help people understand which ones we support, which ones we don't, and how it measures up against Google and Excel. This is a little squirrel model that we created, so you can time the one that everyone seems to ask for is VLOOKUP. Do you support VLOOKUP? Well, yes, we do. Anyway, sorry, Charles, we're running over, and I'm.
That's okay. It's okay. No, it's really interesting. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks again, Donald. Yeah, really, I think you get a sense when we do these. Just a brilliant product. So I really appreciate you guiding us through it.
No problem. Thank you very much.